Welcome to Telesur. I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South, from our studios in Quito. Let's begin. The Supreme Court in Brazil has authorized an investigation into Jair Bolsonaro's future chief of staff. Onyx Lorenzoni has been accused of taking illegal campaign finance donations from the world's largest meatpacking company, JBS. Company executives said that they made payments of over $50,000 to the long-serving congressman between 2012 and 2014. Lorenzoni has said he is not worried about the case and is sure that it will be dismissed. And this court will also decide on whether it issues a new decision on the imprisonment of the former president Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva, and his defense team hopes to secure his freedom. Lula's defense argues that the ruling by Judge Sergio Moro was biased. His lawyers want the whole process to be eliminated and Lula to be released. The public prosecutor's office has rejected this request, but the Supreme Court judges will decide whether they grant the order. A Central American migrant family stranded in the Mexican border in Tijuana were filmed breaching the fence to enter the United States. The migrants who crossed over are expected to be detained by U.S. authorities, but still hope that their claims for asylum can be granted. The migrant caravan set off in mid-October and is consisting mostly of Hondurans. The administration of President Donald Trump has adopted a zero-tolerance policy and has militarized the border to prevent the migrants from gaining entry. And further east, the U.S. border with Mexico closed briefly on Tuesday as Customs and Border Protection officers carried out a drill. Long lines of vehicles built up at Tecate, at the border force prepared for any attempts by Central American migrants to enter the U.S. President Trump has promised that asylum requests will not be considered if migrants cross the border illegally. Our correspondent Pablo Perez explains what is the current situation of the migrant caravan.
Here right behind me, you can see what is left of the shelter at the Benito Juarez Sport Complex here in Tijuana. Heavy rain and deteriorating conditions has made it uninhabitable, plus a cut in services to migrants has forced many out. Yet still about 400 people remain camped outside. They're reluctant to move to another location being offered to them. That's because it's located in an unsafe neighborhood. Just over 2 weeks ago, these migrants arrived here, and now they're being told it's time to move again. Meanwhile, as many as 2,000 people are being temporarily housed at the El Barretal building. The facility has become the newest shelter for Central American migrants seeking a better life in the U.S.
Pablo Perez from Mexico. Now we go to Venezuela. The president, Nicolás Maduro, is meeting Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. Maduro arrived on Russia on Tuesday with the aim of strengthening economic and political ties. The two leaders are expected to discuss cooperation in the fields of energy and cryptocurrencies. Both countries are enduring sanctions imposed by the United States and its allies, but are keen to develop the use of alternative currencies to the dollar in international trade. In Chile, the trial against indigenous Mapuche leader Facundo Jones Huala has begun. The prosecutor's office has requested a 15-year prison sentence for allegedly setting a farm on fire in 2013. The lawyer for this leader says there is no evidence linking him to the case and that the accusations are designed to portray the Mapuche leader as an enemy of the Chilean nation. So we can understand the importance of this case, our correspondent in Chile, Paula Dragnich, has a report.
The opening argument started in the trial against Lonco Juanes Huala, who in the middle of last year was extradited from Argentina to Chile. He had been a fugitive for 4 years, accused of alleged arson in the Pisu area in the south of Chile. This trial tried to present evidence against Mapuche Lonco. However, one of the main witnesses who was taking care of the fund, Alberto Riquelme, said he recognized some of the clothes, but he couldn't link Lonco Huala to the fire in 2013. We must remember that this year 5 people were accused, 4 people were acquitted with the same evidence shown today, and only Machime Yairei was given a minor sentence. These opening arguments are expected to end next week. Lonco Jones Wala was transferred from the Valdivia prison to the Temuco prison, where he will be held with other Mapuche prisoners like Machi Celestino Cordova. The prosecutor's office is asking for a sentence of 12 years, even though Lonco's lawyer says there is no evidence against him.
That was a correspondent, Paula Dragnic. And social movements in Chile are demanding that the use of glyphosate pesticides be prohibited. The pesticide used by Monsanto is legal in Chile, but in other countries is in the process of being banned due to its links to cancer. According to the Ministry of Health in Chile, 2 people have died and 228 were intoxicated in various regions of the country following the use of this product. A Colombian indigenous community is about to be displaced for a second time from their territories in Cartagena. The Senu indigenous people are being forced to leave the land where they lived for more than 10 years.
The main concern for our families is that we don't know where we're going. There is no plan. There are children, old people, pregnant women. We need to have a plan that takes into account the needs of our community. A good solution is that the government could leave us here, because we have already done great work. We have developed crops and productive projects. It's been more than 10 years since we've been here, and people are already used to it. Some children were born here. Authorities need to guarantee the same living conditions we have here and to guarantee lands as well.
Now we go to the Caribbean. Hundreds of laid-off Petrotrin workers in Trinidad and Tobago were dealt with another blow after the refinery ended operations last Friday. The former employees claimed that they were chased away by security workers when they went to the state oil company's office to process their payments. They were told that there was no one there to receive them. Roughly 2,000 workers were impacted by this. Burundi has issued international arrest warrants for former President Pierre Buyoya and 16 senior officials over their alleged role in the assassination of the first democratically elected Hutu president. Melchior Ndadaye won a landmark election in 1993, during which his attempts to remedy ethnic tensions led to hostility from the Tutsi faction in the military. He was killed during a failed coup which led to a civil war, which killed around 300,000 people. Although countries on the continent have been asked to extradite all wanted individuals, Buyoya is currently the African Union's representative in Mali and a well-respected figure.
I have no fear of extradition whatsoever, neither by Mali nor by any other country, because the record of the government of Burundi in terms of human rights is that it is difficult to understand why people are being extradited to that country.
We have more stories coming up. We'll be back with more.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Welcome back. On December 8th, it is the 21st anniversary of the tragedy in the children's home, the Virgen de la Asunción. There have been few advances in the criminal process against those that are accused.
It will be 2019, by the time the trial against those accused of the tragedy at the Virgen de la Asunción state shelter in Guatemala begins, in which 41 girls lost their lives. The parents of the victims seek justice despite delays in the case.
We are looking for this to really move forward, because the truth is that the trial has been delayed a lot and there are always obstacles.
Justice will help these families close this cycle of pain. The report presented by the country's representative of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights asked that the survivors of the tragedy not be criminalized for what happened.
In addition to waiting for justice, the victims demand dignity. Society criticizes them and looks at them with disgust. It looks at them as if they were girls who do not deserve to be loved, who do not deserve a family, who do not deserve opportunities to be part of the agents for change in Guatemala.
Up to now, little attention has been given to the surviving girls by the state, despite the fact that they were promised a lifelong pension and psychological assistance.
The situation we're going through is very hard. It's lamentable and really sad for us mothers. So we're demanding to know what really happened and whether the state is guilty.
What we need now is a response from the state. We need change and total commitment from society and the state, which has to guarantee our rights.
The case of Virgen de la Asunción home will be one of the great tests for the country's judiciary next year, when the defendants face trial and the truth of what happened behind the tragedy that took the lives of 41 girls is made clear.
The Vice President of Ecuador, María Alejandra Vicuña, has resigned. This comes after accusations were made against her for allegedly requesting illegal payments from members of her party. On Monday, President Lenín Moreno suspended her from her duties. Vicuña says she's resigning to save Ecuador from instability.
A person with no shame has been used to accuse me on TV, with nobody double-checking, without anyone asking me. 77 lawmakers in the Assembly have asked for my resignation as they believe this pack of lies, denying me the most basic right to defense. Don't doubt, I will continue working for Ecuador. I have no need for high office to do that.
Alberto Fujimori and the Aprista Peruvian party are trying to modify the country's money laundering law. The changes would benefit politicians under corruption investigations like his own daughter Keiko Fujimori and former President Alan Garcia.
The Justice and Constitution Committees of Congress approved, without a debate, a policy that will favor politicians under investigation for money laundering.
It's highly dangerous because it sets conditions on politicians or political parties that are being investigated for corruption. You previously had to get a report from the National Office for Electoral Processes that would allow the prosecutor to carry out the investigations. This violates the autonomy of the public prosecutor.
The so-called express opinion is being supported by the Fujimori family, Aprista and the banks, all of whom are in some way being investigated for money laundering.
Unfortunately, the drafting of this bill gives way to migration, and this could benefit even those who are already under investigation. That's why I say it's a dangerous regulation if it's not discussed correctly.
The Peruvian former prosecutor warns that those being investigated could appeal under criminal law to mitigate their crimes if this motion in Congress is approved.
In Venezuela, preparations for municipal elections are underway. The polls will take place on December 9.
The countdown is on for Venezuelan citizens to choose their city councils. Voters will have access to 28,000 voting machines nationwide. Electoral fairs have also been set up in various cities. People who visit these fairs can learn a lot about the new electoral process. Citizens, no doubt, look forward to putting their stamp on democracy.
By voting, we ensure that we have our say on governance. If we don't do it, we are defeated. That's why I encourage people to go out and vote, so we can keep democracy alive and keep going with the revolution.
The Venezuelan Electoral Commission, CNE, is assuring that the polling system remains one of the most reliable and verifiable in the world. It has been developed by Venezuela, and it's also in the best interest of the people.
The Venezuelan electoral system has evolved since 2004, and that's thanks to the people who were involved in improving the system.
The National Electoral Commission is also employing new strategies to ensure that everything goes smoothly. Each one of the municipalities is counting down to local elections. People in every community want effective representation.
El Salvador has given land ownership to more than 80,000 low-income families. Here's more on that story.
Rosa Lilian Mendez is one of thousands of disadvantaged Salvadorans who qualify for a government-allocated property. She now owns a house in Tepecoyo village. Her parents died during the Salvadoran Civil War and never owned a property of her own.
And now I have a real house. I still tear up when I see it. I never imagined that one day I would own such a nice house that even my children would love.
Salvadoran President Sanchez Seren wants to give financial security to thousands of farming families, like Carla Valladares, who was given land and built a house, also with government assistance.
And we tried to find a house, but they were all too expensive. And then my father said, "We know enough about masonry, let's build it ourselves." At first, I was a little scared because building a house is no small project, and you still need a lot of money for materials. But thank God we managed to do it, and I'm really proud of it.
In the latest stage of the program, land ownership has been given to more than 1,300 families in the central part of the country. They also participated in an agricultural development program that gave them tomato and pepper plants, fish breeding facilities, technical assistance, and courses on how to vaccinate their livestock.
So this program not only provides people with land, but also helps families learn more about agriculture. We also put special emphasis on empowering women through these initiatives.
And more land ownership will be given to people in poor regions of the country before the Sanchez-Seren presidential term ends.
Scientists in Peru have successfully managed to film the Sabancaya volcano during an eruption using a drone. It is the second time they have been able to send an unmanned craft over the crater during an eruption. The drone captures spectacular images of this event and was equipped with sensors that will measure gases and particles in the plume. We'll take one last short break, but stay with us.
Our actions have an impact on the environment. It's our responsibility to change for the sake of our planet. Let's be part of this transition. Watch, preserve, and protect your Earth. Green Zone. Wednesdays, only on Telesur. Thank you for joining us again. The United Nations Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet has called for an international inquiry into the murder of the Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
Meanwhile, Turkey's chief prosecutor has filed an application to obtain arrest warrants for two close allies of the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who are suspected of planning Khashoggi's murder. Turkey has been seeking to extradite 18 Saudi nationals suspected of taking part in the murder.
So I do believe that is really needed in terms of ensuring what really happened and who are the responsible for that awful killing. But we do believe also, and I do believe that all journalists should be protected, and that is one of our, I would say, priorities.
Meanwhile, a prominent Republican senator in the U.S. has said that he believes the Saudi Crown Prince ordered the killing of Khashoggi. Addressing the media after a closed-door meeting with CIA Director Gina Haspel, Senator Bob Corker, the chairperson of the Senate's Committee on Foreign Relations, said there is a strong evidence linking Mohammed bin Salman to the murder.
I have zero question in my mind that the Crown Prince, MBS, ordered the killing, monitored the killing, knew exactly what was happening, planned it in advance. If he was in front of a jury, he would be convicted in 30 minutes guilty.
Representatives of Yemeni Houthi fighters have arrived in Sweden to take part in peace talks, which aim to end the brutal war between the Houthi fighters and a Saudi-led coalition. The Houthi fighters are accompanied by United Nations Special Envoy to Yemen, Martin Griffiths, who has been trying to set up the talks for months without much success. The war in Yemen has gone on for 4 years, killing thousands of people and leaving millions of others on the verge of starvation. Around 30,000 people have protested against femicide in Tel Aviv's Rabin Square in Israel, urging the government to combat gender-based violence. The demonstration was organized by several municipalities and women's groups following the suspected murders of 2 teenage girls last week. It was part of a nationwide strike to reject violence against women. The number of female victims this year is 24, the highest number in years.
These young women made this phenomena here in the centre of Tel Aviv, and all the people to come and ask the question to the government, hey, this is a terror attack, 24 women murdered in 2018. How come? We need to solve this issue. We need to solve this problem. Enough of this violence.
South Africa has appointed its first woman Attorney General. President Cyril Ramaphosa named attorney Shamila Batohi as the country's next principal legal officer. He said she has, quotes, all the attributes necessary to occupy such an esteemed position. This as Ramaphosa lamented the loss of public confidence in the legal system and inaction in the face of corruption. Authorities in New Caledonia have ordered an evacuation of coastal areas after a tsunami warning was issued following a 7.5 magnitude earthquake just off the coast. Several aftershocks were reported as the Tsunami Center warned of waves up to 3 meters tall for New Caledonia and Vanuatu and up to 1 meter for some parts of Fiji. Residents received text messages instructing them to go to refuge areas immediately. Food insecurity has doubled in Greece during the country's economic crisis. A recent report looks at the impact of the government's austerity policies.
Yorgos Vagalakos is an 81-year-old retiree. In 2010, he received a pension of €1,265. In 2012, that pension was cut back to €900. Today, he only receives €685, with which he finds it near impossible to get by. The owner of a fruit stand he frequents lends him €2 so he can afford his groceries.
I often have a hard time. I go to the market, but I cannot afford the things I want. I get very depressed every time I run out of money. I just cannot afford things.
For the first time since the economic crisis started, a group of international experts have investigated the consequences of austerity measures, such as cutbacks on salaries, pensions and public spending. They have observed that 14% of Greek citizens don't have access to food every day.
Austerity for some, but not for others, because certain actors in the food system have benefited from the years of the crisis. There's been a number of measures that have really benefited larger players in the food system. So I'm talking about larger supermarket chains. They have seen their power consolidated.
Food has dropped from accounting for 16% of a family's budget in 2008 to over 20% in 2016. The increase did not lead to a more complete number of basic goods, but actually fewer. The number of households that cannot afford beef, chicken or fish every other day has doubled from 7% to 14%. The report also shows that the crisis has hit agricultural producers and cattle farmers.
The government has not taken it upon themselves to guarantee a decent living for land workers.
The percentage of farming families living under the poverty line is 39%, 4 points higher than in the cities. Agricultural producers and cattle farmers are responsible for 4% of the GDP and make up 12% of jobs in the country.
And for those who follow football, thousands of Boca Junior fans have taken to the streets of Buenos Aires in Argentina to give a hero's send-off to their team. They were leaving for Spain to play the second leg of the final of the Libertadores Cup against their arch-rivals River Plate. The final was postponed and moved outside the country, causing outrage for South American fans. This after the Boca Juniors bus was attacked by River Plate fans as it arrived at the stadium to play that final in Buenos Aires. And for a bit of holiday spirit, Christmas lights have been switched on in Lebanon. People in the city enjoyed fireworks, carols, and the festive spirit in downtown Beirut. An enormous Christmas tree has also been set up in the city, and bells and an orchestra accompanied a parade. People in Lebanon are trying to find a way to escape violence and instability and promote peace as well as religious diversity. And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. But this and other stories, as you know, you can find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. We're on social media as well, so go ahead and follow us. Thank you for watching Telesur, connecting the Global South.